Okay. Good morning, and this is group one, and we are presenting on the different ways of constructing, testing, and standardizing research instruments, and how to analyze the different qualitative and quantitative instruments for collecting data. Right. So in our research, we know that we need to collect data from people in order to come up with the solution or the hypothesis. We are either proving the hypothesis or we are proving the hypothesis is true or not. And so we need the instrument in gathering these data. And so we are going to look at the research instruments. What are research instruments? Okay. And so these are tools that are used to collect data. So the data that we collect from the sample, from the individuals we've included in our sample, the tools that we use in collecting them is what is known as research instruments. And these instruments must be valid, they must be reliable and standardized. What does it mean that they must be valid? They must be the appropriate tools, use the appropriate tools in collecting the appropriate data. There are different data out there, and we have different tools in collecting them. And so if you are choosing an instrument, that instrument needs to be valid. It means you are using the right tool to collect the right data. It must be reliable so that it does not leave you in the middle. And it must be standardized to the point that if somebody else wants to do the same research and pick the same instrument, it should give the same results as well. Then measurement quality affects research credibility. That is by Gillette 2026. It means that your quality of measurement, how well you measure your data, you collect your data, affects the research credibility. If I collect my data haphazardly, then it will clearly show in my research. If I collect it also well, it will also reflect in my research as well. Okay, next slide, please. Now we move on to the concept of measurement in research. Okay, so measurement, the term measurement means you are assigning a numerical value to a phenomena. Okay, let's say you go to the seamstress, right? And then you need to sew a dress. What does the seamstress do? He or she picks your measurement. He or she is assigning a numerical value to the length or the width of a part of your body so as to put that same measurement onto your clothes to sew. And so that same analogy we are bringing it into research. Now, in research, we have qualitative measurements, okay, and then we have quantitative measurements. Now, the qualitative, we already said qualitative data looks at the descriptive side of it, the experiences, the feelings, okay? And so the measurement captures the meanings and experiences of the people you are gathering. So the qualitative measurement looks at tools that will be able to capture these experiences, these meanings, these feelings, these opinions, okay? On the other hand, quantitative measurement captures the numerical part. So just as the seamstress does, okay, what is the length of your from your knee to your feet, and then you measure, okay, it's 1 point something, and then write it. So the same thing with quantitative, we are looking at numerical patterns, and so that is easier rather to collect. All right, let's move on to the next one, please. Okay, so let's look at the instrument construction process. How do I construct my instruments? Okay, we said that we have the qualitative and the quantitative, but how do we construct these instruments and what process do we need to go through? One, you need to define your research objectives clearly, because what you are aiming at, what your objectives are, what your end product are, would also determine what your process is going to be. And so you define your research objectives clearly. What do I want to achieve? What is it that I'm actually looking at? Okay. And then operationalize variables or concepts. Now, the variables you are going to choose, define them. Define your concept so that it does not become ambiguous. Okay. So you operationalize that as well. All the variables that you are going to use, because as you are collecting this data, you may represent something with another thing. Explain those. All right. Now, the third one, we develop items or questions that are aligned to the construct. Now, just we said, what are your objectives? Now, what questions will line up with what you are trying to achieve? Okay, so the questions you ask must be in line, must have a correlation with your objectives, with the instruments you are using. Okay, and the last one, the research instruments must fit the underlying beliefs about how you gain knowledge and the overall research perspective. So that is by Vassiliou et al. Okay, he says that they say that the instruments you are picking, so whatever instruments you are picking, which we will look at later, must underline your belief. Okay, the hypothesis you are trying to prove, it must go in line with that as well. Right, the next one.
Okay, thank you.
The next slide.
Thank you, and I will take it from the next slide. Okay, so basically, we are looking at the steps involved in instrument development. Now, when we are talking about the instrument, what are we talking about? We are talking about your questionnaires, we are talking about your interview schedules, we are talking about your observation checklist, we are also talking about text and examination. Then we can also talk about rating skills. But what are the steps that we have to follow to develop this instrument? We are saying that we have to look at literature review. And literature review, we had a presentation on it, and we are saying that before you come out with any research, you have to look at what others have said about the topic you are going to go through, and look at what has been said, and then if there are gaps, then you have to come in to fill in the gap in those existing literature. Then after you review literature, then you must draft your items, the instrument that you want to develop, you must draft them. Then after you draft the instrument, after drafting your questionnaires, after drafting your observation checklist, then you must give it to an expert to review. And in our case, we have to give it to our supervisor to review our instrument to see whether we can progress to the next stage. If your supervisor is okay with your instrument that you have developed, then you go to pilot. You have to test your instrument. So piloting is just like trying your instrument on a small group of people to see whether what you desire, what you want to achieve, it will really produce what you want to achieve. So after piloting, then you have to revise and finalize. So we know that maybe after piloting, you might get some error. What you desire, you will not get. Maybe you have to readjust the instrument to finalize what you really want to do. So the final stage is to revise and finalize your instrument. That is where you are assessing that this instrument can carry me to my research. Then now let's talk about some terms in a research instrument. We'll be looking at validity. So what is validity in research instrument? We are saying that it refers to the accuracy of your measurement. So you take a measurement, as my colleagues say, you take the measurement of someone's part, you take the measurement of somebody's weight. So what is the accuracy of that measurement you took? That is what we are looking at. We are looking at how accurate it is. Can it be accurate so that when anybody take that measurement, the same results will be achieved? Then we are saying that validity asks the question, does it cover everything you should? So you took your instrument, has it covered the entire sample, or the entire population? Has it covered everyone that is supposed to cover in your research? Has it? If it has, then we are saying that your instrument you have developed is very valid. Then we look at content validity. So the content of your instrument. So when you take your questionnaire, what are the content? So we are saying that the content should ensure coverage construct. So your coverage should, when we talk about coverage, it's like a capture of the whole population you want to take your research on. So you should have a content that cover the whole population. It asks the question, does it measure the concept you're supposed to do to all the concepts that you want to take your research? Are you able to measure, or are you able to uh, ask questions on all the concepts? Then construct validity ensures theoretical alignment. So as we are learning, so your our learning theoretically, when it comes to the practical, it should be able to match with the practical thing we are going to do as we are presenting now. When the time comes for us to do the practical one, we should be able to do as expected. Then criterion validity. Does it predict what we should practice? So we are looking at whether what we predict, what we are suggesting as in our hypothesis, is it practicable? That can it be practicable in our research instrument? And now we move on to look at reliability in research instruments, and that will also mean that will our instruments be reliable for us to use in our research? Can reliability same result when repeated? So when my instrument is being repeated by another researcher with on the same group of people or participants, are we saying that we are going to get the same result? For time's sake, I will give it to my friend to continue. Question.
Okay, thank you. All right. So with the yes, we look at pilot testing. So as my colleagues said earlier, we are looking at research instruments. Okay. So now let's look at the pilot testing of our research instrument. Now, so to pilot test is to try to use our research instrument to see if all what we said about it, whether it is reliable and all those stuff, can those attributes can really work. All right. So in pilot testing, first of all, we use a small scale trial of instruments. So now we've designed our instrument. So we just use a small scale, like we sample, take a small sample and then try um, test to see if it will actually bear this attribute. Then we move on to look at we identify ambiguity and biases. So when we try test, we can see if there are some inconsistencies that we should resolve, or if there are some ambiguities. Some ambiguities could be of the form that maybe our research instrument is not really understood, or it's the interpretation is not really aligning with what we are expecting. So we can clear the ambiguity, we can identify some of the ambiguities in this, and then we work on it. And also it improve clarity and accuracy before full study. So before we employ this research study, or we have agreed to use it, we could see where it needs to be clarified and then where to be corrected, so that we have our research accurately done. That is when before we enter into the full study, we'll be able to identify where to clarify and then where to improve on in terms of accuracy. All right. So let's move on. Okay, so let's look at standardization of research instruments. Now we have to standardize our researchers. To standardizing in effect means to make something kind of universal. We make it unique. All right. So to standardize our research instrument, if we go through all this step and we get to this level, we realize that okay, after now pilot testing, we can now make it universal. We cannot make it unanimous, so that it won't vary across. Maybe if I use it and someone uses it, we should have the same attributes that we are given it. We should have the same attributes merging up. All right. So in effect, we say it should be standardized instrument. It should have uniform administrative process. Yes. So administration means using something or trying to employ. Yeah, in effect, just using something. So in case we use it, we try to employ it in our research. We should have a uniform. It should the process should be uniform, and then we should also have a uniform results from that, findings from that. It should give us a uniform um attribute as we expect. That is same instrument for all participants. Yes, for all participants, we should use this instrument, and also clear scoring guidelines. Yeah, so the attributes actually, as my um, sister said, it said that measurement simply means if you we giving numerical value to some desired attributes. So the score, I mean the measurement guidelines we given should be clear. Yes, and also the norms, that is creating reference score for comparison, should also be it should be standardized. All right, let's move on. Let's move. Okay. All right. So now let's look at quantitative instruments. So as the word goes, quantitative. So quantitative, we're looking at um number of. So as we are looking at measurements, we are looking at number of our instruments. I mean, the data we are going to gather, the quantitative part of it, but using the instrument to our research instrument to quantitative test it. Now, first of all, in terms of quantitative, we use questionnaire here. Let's look at questionnaire. So in questionnaire, we we use to collect numerical data, just as the name goes, quantitative. We are looking at numerical data here. So we use our instrument to collect numerical data, and also we use it to in this it requires reliability actually. So it requires reliability. So if we are employing an instrument in a quantitative test, such as questionnaire, we expect that our instruments testing should be reliable. That is, if I use it or my brother or my sister uses it, the the testing should be reliable in terms of whatever results they will find and I find in the same or similar situation should be universal. Now, the test should also be what standardized in terms of quantitative, because quantitative, you're looking at number of research instruments here. So it should be standardized. So the test that I will use, and since we want to get a uniform response, the test that I will use shouldn't be different from what others will also use in terms of administrating this instrument. So the measurement, it measures performance against norms. Yes, so we look at in terms of measurement, we look at what the attribute you want, and then the values, what you are trying to research on, and then the attributes you are assigning to it. So it should correlate. Yes. And then used in educational quality assessments as well. So in if we were to look at a quality assessment in education, such as let's say performance of students or the learning skills of students. So in this case, we are trying. This is what we are trying. So the instrument we employ here should assess the quality, not just counting it, counting the student. Even though we are using quantitative, we are looking at a number of students here, but it should be able to guide us to look for the actual attribute we are trying to research on. And then in survey, just as it is quantitative, we're looking at quantitative research here. So we are looking at survey as well. So in surveys, we use a large sample data collection actually. So we have to, as I said earlier, have to look for a whole number of our research. So let's say individual samples that we need to employ here should be it should be a lot of people, so that the attributes we are trying to measure, if we cast it across, we will be able to get a lot of it, and then we can analyze from that. Okay.
Right.
Okay, I'm taking from the sampling in quantitative research. Sampling means like choosing people for your study. So in quantitative research, we have large samples are preferred. We have random selection. That's probability sampling. That is better. And we have statistical reasons must support the sample size. Bigger and random samples give stronger results. So yeah. Slide 12. We have qualitative instruments overview. These collect detailed and descriptive data. Examples: interviews, asking open questions, focus groups, that's group discussions. We have observation, watching like watching behavior. We have document analysis, that's studying written materials. They focus on understanding experiences. Slide 30. Testing qualitative instruments. Even quantitative tools must be tested. So we have ways of testing. So we have try sample interviews. We have like improve interview questions. Ask participants to confirm your interpretation. That's member checking. So this improves credibility. Slide 14. That's trustworthiness in qualitative research. Instead of validity and reliability, qualitative research uses credibility. That's, is it believable? It asks the question like, is it believable? We have transferability. That one also asks the question like, can it apply elsewhere? We have confirmability. It also asks the question like, is it unbiased? We have dependability, and that one also asks questions like, is it consistent? This ensures quality in non-numerical research. Slide 15. We have mixed methods instruments. Mixed methods combine both the quantitative and the qualitative. So the quantitative is numbers and the qualitative uses other variables. That's not numbers. That's maybe something like experiences. So using both strengthens the study. This is called triangulation. That's checking results from different angles. Right system. We have standards indicators in education research.